Hey there, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here with me today. So, today we are going to talk about something really fascinating: Neanderthals. Yes, those ancient human relatives that lived long, long before us. You have probably heard many things about them. Maybe you think they were stupid, slow, and wild. But guess what? Many of those things are not true. Today, we are going to bust the biggest myths about Neanderthals and find out what they were really like. Let's get started. So, first things first. Who were Neanderthals? Well, back in 1856, some workers were digging in a cave in Germany. They found some very old bones. Bones that looked almost human, but not exactly human. Scientists studied these bones and realized something amazing. These bones belong to a completely different kind of human being. They called the species Homo neanderthalensis, or simply Neanderthals. It was the very first ancient human species ever discovered by science. Pretty cool, right? Neanderthals lived on Earth for a very long time, more than 350,000 years. They lived across Europe and Western Asia. And here's something interesting. For at least the last 10,000 years of their time on Earth, they actually lived alongside modern humans, like you and me. So they were not some faraway, forgotten creatures. They were our neighbors. But here's the problem. For a very long time, people had a very wrong picture of Neanderthals in their heads, and today we are going to fix that. First, Neanderthals were stupid. This is probably the biggest and most popular myth. For a long time, people thought Neanderthals were dumb animals, hairy, clumsy, and carrying big clubs. Old drawings showed them walking with bent backs, almost like apes. Some people even said they had ape-like feet. But guess what? None of this was true. There was no real evidence for any of it. The truth is, Neanderthals were actually very intelligent. They made many different kinds of tools. They used sharp stones to cut and work with different materials. They even made their own glue. Yes, glue, from heated birch bark to attach stone tools to wooden handles. They shaped wooden digging sticks using fire. They created string from tree bark fibers. Three-ply string, people. That means they twisted three pieces of fiber together, just like we do today. Does that sound stupid to you? Not at all. Second, Neanderthals were only good at one thing: running at big animals and hitting them hard. People thought they were not smart enough to have real hunting skills. But again, the evidence tells a very different story. Scientists found cut marks on small animal bones, like rabbits. This tells us that Neanderthals could hunt small, fast animals too. Hunting a rabbit is actually much harder than hunting a big, slow animal. You have to be quick, clever, and skilled. Researchers also found tools with traces of feathers and fish scales on them, which suggest Neanderthals were fishing and catching birds as well. They may have even used snares, little traps to catch animals without even being there. That is smart hunting, not brute force. Next, Neanderthals did not care about others. Some people believe Neanderthals were cold and selfish, that they only thought about themselves and their own survival. But this myth falls apart very quickly when you look at the archaeological evidence. Scientists found the remains of a Neanderthal man in a cave in northern Iraq. This man had serious injuries. His right arm was cut off, his leg was badly hurt, and he was probably partly blind and deaf. Now, here's the important thing. He did not die right away from these injuries. He lived for a long time after them. How? Because his community took care of him. His group gave him food, protection, and help every single day. Without their support, he would not have survived. This is a very powerful sign of compassion and community. There is another example from a cave in France. Scientists found the remains of an older Neanderthal who had a lot of problems, trouble walking, and very few teeth. He probably needed his food to be crushed or softened before he could eat it. Again, this tells us his group was helping him survive. And it gets even more meaningful. There is evidence that Neanderthals buried their dead. They didn't just leave their loved ones behind. They took time to bury them. This is a deeply human thing to do. It shows that Neanderthals felt something about the people they lost. Then, Neanderthals had no sense of beauty or art. For a long time, scientists believed that art, music, and symbolic thinking were things only modern humans could do. Neanderthals, people thought, only cared about food and survival. They didn't think about beauty or meaning. But the evidence keeps surprising us. Scientists found shells that Neanderthals painted and made holes in, possibly to wear as jewelry or decoration. They found eagle talons that seemed to be wrapped in some kind of material, like a craft or accessory. They discovered a giant elk bone with markings on it, markings that had no practical purpose, just markings, just like art. And perhaps most incredibly, there are 3 cave paintings in Spain that may have been made by Neanderthals around 65,000 years ago. That's tens of thousands of years before modern humans arrived in that area. If this dating is correct, Neanderthals were making art long before we did. Deep in a cave in France, scientists also found broken and rearranged stalagmites. Those are the rocky formations that grow up from the cave floor. These structures seem to be arranged on purpose, deep inside a dark cave where no one lived. Why would Neanderthals go deep into a cave to arrange rocks? Some scientists believe these structures may have had spiritual or ceremonial meaning. That is a truly remarkable idea. Finally, Neanderthals had nothing to do with us. Perhaps the most surprising discovery of all came in 2010, when scientists managed to fully sequence, that means read completely, the Neanderthal genome. The genome is like the biological instruction book of a living thing. And what they found was astonishing. Modern humans carry Neanderthal DNA. All of us. People today have up to about 4% Neanderthal DNA in their genes. This happened because when modern humans and Neanderthals lived side by side, they didn't just ignore each other, they mixed. They had children together, hundreds of times, in many different places and moments across history. So Neanderthals are not completely gone. They live on, in us. So, what really happened to Neanderthals? Scientists have several ideas. Some say climate change made life too hard for them. Others suggest that diseases played a role. Some believe that modern humans, with their larger populations and wider networks, slowly absorbed Neanderthal groups through interbreeding. Because Neanderthals lived in smaller, more isolated groups, over time their identities simply blended into the growing population of Homo sapiens. Today, scientists no longer think of human evolution as a simple straight line or tree. Instead, they describe it more like a braided river. Different groups of humans splitting apart, coming back together, mixing and separating again. Neanderthals were one of those streams, and their waters are still flowing inside all of us. For more than 100 years, people believed Neanderthals were primitive, stupid, and violent. But science showed something very different. They were intelligent, they were creative, they cared for each other, they made tools, art, and maybe even had spiritual ideas. The biggest myth was not about Neanderthals. The biggest myth was in our own minds. We judged them by their bones and by old drawings. We saw their strong bodies and thought they were simple. But being different doesn't mean being less. We should not believe old stereotypes without question. We should look at evidence. We should stay open. Science changes. Knowledge grows. Neanderthals were not monsters. They were human in many ways. And in a small but real way, they're part of us. When we look at them, we are also looking at ourselves. That's all for today, my friends. I've covered a lot of information on the biggest myths about Neanderthals. Thanks for joining and watching me. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps more learners find our friendly community. Like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell to make sure you don't miss the future uploads. See you in the next one. Bye-bye for now, my dear friends.